All right, in this video we are going to explore how to create links. How do we click on something on a web page and have it pull up another web page? And that is called hyperlinks. So the purpose of this video is to show you how to create hyperlinks. All right, so this is where we left off in the last video. In the last video I created a recipe for peanut butter cookies. And we used ULs on ordered lists, which is the bullets, and we used orders lists, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, to create this recipe. And then of course we put in an image. And we called it index, but I've renamed this one to cookies.html because I'm kind of visioning a website that has different pages for different recipes, and then an index page, which is like a home page in which I can choose different recipes or different pages to go to. So this is kind of where I'm headed here. I have created, let's see, I copied the work that we did the last time. In other words, we had these peanut butter cookies. I just copied and pasted all of those tags and created a brownie.html and just put the different text in for the brownies instead of for the peanut butter cookies, obviously. And that one looks very similar to the cookie page where I have ingredients and then I have directions and I have an image. So really all I did was change the text. Incidentally, here's a good use of those special characters. I could have just put 1/4, but that doesn't make that nice, neat little fraction type symbol. So I used special characters, and I just looked it up on W3 Schools. I didn't remember it offhand what the symbol was, but that is it. So remember, when you're using special characters, don't forget your semicolon. Anyway, so I used special characters to put in my fractions, and now I have a Brownies HTML page. Fantastic, that looks great. And now I'm creating this index page, which looks like this. And the index page then is pretty straightforward, but I can't link, these pages aren't linked together. There's nothing on these pages that allow me to go from one to the other. And so that's what we're going to create now. So I guess we'll start on our 3 ingredient page. And I'm going to put this off to the side for the moment just to make some demonstrations. All right. First thing I want to make sure that I point out is what we're going to call a relative reference or relative path. And the idea here is that all of these files, you can see all of the files that I'm using on this web page. You can see here in my desktop, also notated up here at the top of my notepad window, that in my desktop I have index.html. And in my index.html is my image file, which should be cake.jpg. And here is my cake.jpg. So all of these files and all of these images all reside in my desktop folder. So if you want to create a new folder and move them all, let's just do that. New folder, and I'm going to call this a recipe folder, recipe. And if I move them all to my recipe folder, can I do that? Sure. Of course, now this no longer works because I don't have them in my desktop anymore. So let's just say, no, we're going to close these all out. I'm going to open up my recipe folder. There's all those files. Fantastic. So now I can right click on these and choose open with notepad. Perfect. Okay, good. So they're here, still here. And open with notepad. I'm just going to bring them all up so I have them all on my page. I can work with them all together. Okay, fantastic. So as long as they're all in the same folder, that's how you want to organize all of your code. As long as they're all in the same folder, we don't have to care not only where they are on my own computer, but if I wanted to send these files up to a live server, which we'll talk about, or give them to somebody else, all I have to do is send over this particular folder, and therefore all the files reside in this recipe folder. I don't have to put C:users, Markle, whatever to find other files. They're all going to be in this folder. So If you don't understand all of this, that's okay for the short run. It's going to make more and more sense as we put things up to a live web server. But for now, make sure that you keep all of your files in one particular folder. And then we'll see how to put images in a separate folder within there for now. But for now, we're just going to keep everything in one folder, and it's going to be in our recipe folder. All right, so that being said, let's make some links so that we can click in between these pages and be able to link these pages together. All right, so I'm going to do this in my index page, which, if you recall right, looks like this. So I'll put these side by side so we can see these all together. Okay, fantastic. All right, so I think across the top here, I'm going to have a link between these pages. So we'll put that at the very top here. And the way we do that is with this A tag, which stands for anchor, but it's a hyperlink tag. So we use this A tag, and then we're going to use href as one of our elements. And href simply says, what is the reference? What is the link? The hyperlink reference is what that stands for, that we want to go to if somebody clicks on this link. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a link to, well, it's always good to create a link to the home page. We always see that, right, when we're looking at web pages. So I'm going to create a link to the index page. And that's the current page I'm on, right? And I'll explain, well, I'm on that page. Why would you, let's just walk with this for a moment. href equals index.html. So that's the page I'm currently on. So we're going to make a link to the home page. Okay, there's a closing anchor tag. So that Notepad put that in for me automatically. I'm going to put in the word home. Okay, let's just see what happens there. So if I refresh this page, oh, we moved it, didn't we? So these are no longer going to be accurate because they're no longer on my desktop. This particular, let me just re-emphasize what I did there. Forgot about that. This is looking on the desktop. Well, we moved that. So let's just close this out, and I'll run it from here. Run in Firefox. There we go. There it is. Okay. So there's a link to the home page. So just by creating this ahref, if the user clicks on home, this browser is going to transfer them to a page that's relative. In other words, looking in the same directory as this particular file that I'm sitting on. In this case, we're just calling ourselves. So it's just going to reload itself. All right, well, we want to include the other pages. So I'm going to put a space. I'm going to put this little symbol here. We call it a pipe. It is above on your keyboard, depending on where it is on the keyboard, but it's the key on top of your backslash. So if you hit shift and your backslash key, you should see that, but you can put whatever you want. I'm going to make another link then for the cookies page, which is relative to the same directory. In other words, you don't have to look anywhere else, Mr. Browser. This HTML file, this cookies HTML file, should be in the same folder that this index HTML file is on. And so close that, and we're going to put cookies, and then I'm going to put another pipe, and then another ahref equals, and we're going to go to the Brownie page, brownie.html, and I'm going to put Brownie. So obviously then I think you're kind of getting the point that the text that comes between this opening and closing anchor tag is what we see, what the user sees. And then what's inside the href is where they're going to be directed when they click on it. So let's just see if this works. So we're on our home page, and if I click on home, I'm on the same page. Notice that it's a visited link, so the browser's automatically saying, well, you've already been to this particular page, so it changes the color, and we'll look at that, how we can change those defaults later. But so cookies hasn't been clicked on, so it's a different color. So let's click on cookies and see if it takes us to the cookies page. Yay, it did. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. That's now showing as a visited link because the color is different. Unvisited link, Brownies. So I'm going to click on that and make sure. Oh, so I did something wrong there, didn't I? Let's just double check. Can't find brownies.html. Well, if I look at brownie, I spelled it brownie and not oh, that makes sense. Okay, so let's get rid of the S and then save it. I'm going to go back to my index page. Incidentally, if I hold my mouse over the brown. I'm not clicking, but I'm holding it over the link. If I move my mouse, I can't show it. But if you look at the very bottom of this window, in other words, down here in the status bar, so if you look at it, I can still see that it's pointing to brownies.html. So that's a good way for you to say, why? Oh, right, I did not refresh the page yet. Remember, I saved the change, haven't refreshed the page, so now I'm going to refresh it. Hold my link over. There at the bottom it says brownie.html, so my correction has been made. Let's click on it, and now we can see brownies. Awesome. Okay, well, let's just copy and paste then this menu, if you will, to each of our pages. Same spot for consistency. Make sure I indent that for readability. Brownie, same thing. Make sure that that got indented. It did save. Okay, so now I'm going to come back to my home page and refresh it. Now if I click on cookies, it also has the menu. If I click on brownie, fantastic. Okay, so I want to reiterate then why, if I'm on my home page, which I'm on here, why if I'm on my home page would I want a link to the home page? I'm already on the home page. How much sense does that make to have a link to the page I'm currently on? Well, think about when you're on a website. If menu items aren't consistent, even though I'm on the home page, you as the programmer know, well, this is the home page, so they should know, but users get lost. And so we want to keep, especially the menu system, as consistent as possible. So even though you and I both know we're on the home page, we should still provide them, the user, a link to the home page, because we don't want them to get lost within the site. So there's certain things that you want to be consistent from page to page. And one of them is your menu item. So that way, no matter where they are, they have some kind of consistent navigation so they can find their way back to the beginning. They might not know that this is the home page. You do, but they don't. So that's why I made sure that I had all 3 pages on my menu system. Even though I was on the index page, I still included that index. So, okay, so we're good there. Fantastic. All right, well, what if I want to send my users to the site that I actually got all these recipes from, which is this particular page right here? I don't know, it's nothing special. I just did a search for 3 ingredient recipes because I was trying to find some easy recipes that I could use to demonstrate these lists without having a zillion recipes or a zillion steps. So nothing special about this particular page. It's just where just a page I use to get some recipes from. All right, but it's probably a good idea for copywriting information to provide that page. So I'm going to go back to my menu system then, and this is getting a little bit hard to read, so maybe I will bring these down. Now again, the browser doesn't really care about these blank spaces, but it just is easier to read now, isn't it? All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create a link to an external page. In other words, a page that doesn't exist within the directory that I'm currently sitting in, but actually tell the browser, go to someone else's, go to another website and display that instead. So it's the same start, href equals, but this time we need to reference this page. And so what we're going to do is click inside this URL status bar, or I guess address bar, not status bar, and I'm going to copy the whole thing. So even though you can't see the whole bar in here, the whole address is being copied, and I'm going to paste it into my href. Okay, so it's important when you're linking to an external page that you include, make sure you do your ending quotes there, that you include the HTTPS or HTTP, depending on whatever's in that URL. And we'll learn more about this. This is the protocol. This is how the browser knows how to display or to talk to the live web server, and we'll learn more about this as we go along. But now we're really saying, go out into the big World Wide Web, utilizing this particular protocol, HTTP or HTTPS, depending what's on that particular page. And this is how we know we need to go to this domain, and here is the directories that you need to go to. And in fact, there's probably an index.something page that is the default. Notice there's no pages at the end here. In other words, you don't see index.html, but in our case, because we put index.html, that's the page that's being displayed. More on that later. But for now, you get the idea that we're going to put in the whole URL into our href. Make sure we put it in quotes. And now say Epicurus, I guess maybe that's Epicurious, because that's the site that I got this these recipes from. All right, so let's test that before we do anything else. I'm going to go back to my home page, reload that. Oh, it's already loaded. There we go. So if I click on Epicurus, I should be getting that web page. Sure enough, it got delivered. Okay. Now here's a disadvantage to what we just did. When I clicked on that link, Epicurus came up. That's fantastic. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's my video, so I can pronounce it however I want, I suppose. So, but notice that I completely lost my web page that I created. And if you're creating a web page for your own business, you certainly don't want to send your users to another website and then have them lose sight of where you are. Well, sure, they can hit the backspace key, but let's do something else. Just because I think it's a little bit, personally, I don't want them to lose me if I'm building a site for my own business. So what we can do is after the href, we can put another attribute called target equals, and I'm just going to kind of take this at face value for now, equals underscore and the word blank. And what that does is it opens up a new tab in the window so that my web page is still in their browser, but there's just another web page being delivered at the same time. So now if I click on Epicurus, you can see a new tab came up, but I haven't lost them from me yet. So they're still in my web page, but they also can look at the site that I wanted to give them a link to. So that makes more sense to me as far as a web developer. Either is correct, of course, but to me this makes more sense. All right, so now I have this menu. I'm going to copy them over to the other pages. Copy and paste so that I have those menu systems on all the pages. Remember, I said that it's always good to be consistent on all of your web pages. This is kind of a pain, sure, but we'll find other ways eventually to make this copy and paste system a little easier. But for now, that's what we're going to do. So now if I click on my home page, I've got, yes, Cookies has all of those, Brownie has all of those, and Epicurus then opens up a tab to another web page. My page is still open. Fantastic. All right, one other link I'm going to share with you. I'm going to put this one at the very bottom. I'm going to create a contact me. Contact, kind of like a footer. Contact me. And I want to put an email address. So markleyk@otc.edu. But wouldn't it be nice, and I'm sure you've seen this on web pages, where you can click on a link and then you're taken directly to your email system. So let's do this. I'm going to put Markley K. I'm going to put my email address into a ref equals. I'm going to leave it blank for the moment. Let's see. Just kind of set up the shell for it. Okay. So we're going to create a hyperlink to our email address. But what we'll do, instead of, we don't really have a web page to put in our aref, but we do have this special word we can use, mail to, and then you put the email address in there. So this is kind of a special hyperlink that we can use, mail to, and then you put in the email address of whoever it is that you want to, whatever email address you want to use. So now if I save that, this is just on my Brownie page, so I got to pay attention to that. Okay, contact me. So now if somebody clicks on Markley K, it automatically, I'm not going to let that finish because I've got a bunch of emails on there, but it'll bring up the user's default emailer and then allows you to email this person. So, this contact me, I don't really like it right next to image. So what can I do to force that onto a new line? Well, for now, a tool that we can use is br/, which means break return. And so I can force a new line with this br break return, and voila, looking good. All right, so for consistency then, that's a good footer. I'm going to put that on the rest of my pages and save that, and put this on the rest of my pages and save that, and good. So I am having the, oh, why did that make it so big? Well, because that is still, look, oh, I see. Can you see the problem? This would be a good one to run through the validator. So this is still, I didn't intend this, but this is a great troubleshooter. Why is this one so much bigger than my other ones? I copied and pasted that exactly the same. Why? Well, let's look at our code here. Let's look at, first of all, Notepad++ is trying to give me some kind of clue as what's going on here, and you'll notice that right off the bat, you can see my H1 closing, opening and closing tag are not the same color. So Notepad's trying to let me know that something isn't quite right here. So somewhere along the lines, I accidentally put in a quotation mark, which means that as far as the browser is concerned, I never closed my H1 tag. And so it's making everything an H1 because there is no H1 closing tag. So it doesn't know where am I supposed to stop doing an H1 and where am I supposed to do my default font, my normal font. So that's why this one is so much bigger. So let's fix that. So if I ran that through the validator, you also would have gotten some errors. So that's a good way to check yourself. And phew, now everything looks normal again. All right, so we've gotten a great overview of hyperlinks. We have seen that we can put hyperlinks by using the href tag, using files that are in the same folder that whichever page is being linked from. So in other words, here's the index file. All of these pages are relative to where I'm clicking. So I'm clicking on the index file. The browser says the index file is in this current folder. So I should be able to find Brownie and Home and Cookies in the same folder because they're all relatively in the same place. We also created a link to an external web page, and we wanted to make sure that we included the entire URL, including the HTTP or the HTTPS protocol, and the entire domain name that was provided along with that URL address. We also did a href to a special mail to that allowed us to have our page automatically pull up a email account, and so the user could email whatever address we put in here. Whew, that was a lot. So now we have the makings of what's starting to really develop into a web page. Not just a web page, I guess I should say website. It's pages linked together into a website. There we go, that sounds better.